Hello everyone, I am Andi Isra Kirgianto Amal from Business English Communication Class A. In this moment, we're gonna talk about dimensions of intercultural interactions and conflict. In this presentation contain 8 topics, which is about intercultural communication, personal traits, cultural, symbolic exchange, pro- progress or process, and then communication between cultural, globalization, diversity, and the last one is the speed of market. So let's get to the first topic, which is about intercultural communication. Intercultural communication refers to the communications between people from two different cultures. Intercultural communications is a symbolic, interpretive, transactional, contextual process in which people from different cultures create shared meanings. Intercultural communication refers to the effect on communication behavior when different cultures interact together. Hence, one way of viewing intercultural communication is as communication that unfolds in symbolic intercultural spaces. It describes the wide range of communications process and problems that naturally appear within an organization or social context made up of individuals from different religious, social, ethnic, and educational backgrounds. In this sense, it seeks to understand how people from different countries and cultures act, communicate, and perceive the world around them. Intercultural communication plays a role in social sciences such as anthropology, cultural studies, linguistics, psychology, and communication studies. Intercultural communications is also referred to as the base for international businesses. Several cross-cultural service providers assist with the development of intercultural communication skills. Research is a major part of the development of intercultural communication skills. Intercultural communications is in a way that interaction with the speakers of other languages on equal terms and respecting their identities. These are moments when communication exchange has been affected by cultural differences. The next topic is about personal traits. In conversations, there is an individual person and their unique traits, which include their generosity, integrity, loyalty, devotion, loving, kindness, sincerity, self-control. These are the example of personal traits. Personality traits reflects people's characteristic patterns of thoughts, feelings, and behavior. Personality traits imply consistency and stability. Someone who scores high on a specific traits like extraversions is expecting to be sociable in different situations and over time. Thus, trait psychology rests on the idea that people differ from one another in terms of where they stand on a set of basic traits dimensions that persist over time and across situations. The most widely used systems of traits is called the five-factor models. The systems include 5 broad traits that can be remembered with the acronyms called OCEANS, which is openness, consistentness, extraversions, agreeableness, and neuroticism. Each of the major traits from the Big Five can be divided into phases to give a more fine-grained analysis of someone's personality. In addition, some traits theorists argue that there are other traits that cannot be completely captured by the five-factor models. Critics of the trait concept argue that people do not act consistently from one situation to the next, and that people are very influenced by the situation's forces. Thus, one major debate on the field concerns the relative powers of people's traits versus the situation in which they find themselves as predictors of their behavior. Next topic is about culture. Culture is the characteristic and knowledge of particular groups of people, encompassing language, religion, cuisine, social habits, music, and arts. The concept of the material cultures cover the physical expressions of culture, such as technology, architecture, and art, whereas the immaterial aspects of culture, such as principles of social organizations, including practices of political organizations and social institutions, mythology, philosophy, literature, and science comprise the intangible cultural heritage of society. In the humanity, one sense of cultures as an attribute of the individual has been the degree to which they have cultivated a particular level of sophistication in the arts, science, education, or manners. The level of cultural sophistication has also sometimes been used to distinguish civilizations from less complex societies, such as hierarchical perspective on cultural are also found in a class-based distinctions between a high culture of the social elite and a low culture, popular culture or folk culture of the lower classes. Distinguished by the stratified access to cultural capital. In common parlance, culture is often used to refer specifically to the symbolic marks used by ethnic groups to distinguish themselves visibility from each other, such as body modification, clothing, or jewelry. Mass culture refers to the mass-produced and mass-mediated from forms of consumer culture that emerged in the 20th century. Some schools of philosophy, such as Marxism and critical theory, have argued that culture is often used politically as a tool of the elites to manipulate the proletariat and creates a false consciousness. Such perspectives are common in the disciplines of cultural studies. In the wider social sciences, the theoretical perspective of Cultural materialism holds that human symbolic culture arises from the material condition of human life, as humans create the conditions of physical survival, and that the basis of culture is found in involved biological depositions. Let's go to the next about the symbolic exchange process. In a cultural exchange, we have symbols. These are verbal or non-verbal things that have deeper meaning than what you see or hear. For the example, a flag may mean pride to the one person and operations to another. For those of you who are familiar, in South Africa during the apartheid era, a flag to a certain race may have meant pride and another meant operations. For the example, then there's shared meanings and in shared meanings we hope to use words that bridge gaps so that two people of different cultures start sharing with the same meaning, so that they work together towards a shared outcome. When you have shared meaning, interactions become faster. Without shared meanings, there's more and more pauses and stops in our interactions. And having to recalibrate, having to re-explain what we mean to each other. So shared meanings is very important. And then there's given context. Given context means the surrounding of the situation that impact the understanding of the meaning of the interactions. For the example, a conversations between two people about different races in a classroom. A very safe environment to discuss race is a very different conversation in context than two different races holding guns upon each other on the streets fighting over who gets to use a part to play in. Those are two highly different contexts with very much different energy in the two parties. Before we know each other as safe to one another in terms interacting, there's a lot of interfering of intentions based upon what we know. That is why we study intercultural interaction and why it's important. This is really, and this whole class is very to open up our minds as libraries of knowledge to be aware of these extra layers called intercultural communication. The next topic is communication between culture. That there's that there these other layers of reality occurring between people of different cultures that explain the behavior of one another. And the social differences we have, it's so important to have these layers of understanding, because without it there's one more chance that an interaction could go wrong, and we could choose either to disengage, or we could choose even worse to stereotype and generalize and separate and maybe even react, which really at a global level would be a sad things. The opportunity for all of us is to understand this layer and to work better and faster together. The next is about globalizations. Globalizations plays a central role in theorizing for mass communication, media, and cultural communication studies. Intercultural communications scholars emphasize that globalization emerged from the increasing diversity of culture throughout the world and thrives with the removal of cultural barriers. The notions of nationality or the constructions of national space is understood to emerge dialectically through communications and globalizations. The next is about diversity. Cultural diversity is the quality of diverse of different cultures as opposite to monoculture, the global monoculture or homogenizations of cultures. Akin to cultural decay, the phrase cultural diversity can also refer to having different cultures respect each other differences. The phrase called cultural diversity is also sometimes used to mean the theory of human societies or cultures in a specific regions or in the world as a whole. Diversity refers to the attributes that people use to confirm themselves with respect to others. That person is different from me. These attributes include demographic factors such as race, gender, and age, as well as values and cultural norms. The many separate societies that emerge around the globe differ markedly from each other, and many of these differences persist to this day. The more obvious cultural differences that exist between people are language, dress, and traditions. There are also significant variations in the way societies organize themselves, such as in their shared conception or of morality, religious belief, and in the ways they interact with their environment. Cultural diversity can be seen as analogous to biodiversity. So the last topic is about speed of market. At a corporate level, for each of you who's fully em- employed in an organization that may be global, speed to market is a great advantage of intercultural understanding. The expectations to bring ideas to markets are even increasing. The understanding cultural differences, I mean, the speed of business, the speed of business is another strategic weapon for companies, and such as understanding cultural differences provides a lubricant to accelerate global teams moving faster to produce results. Companies are looking to achieve greater revenue and lower costs through going deeper internationally. That requires trust. Important word, trust, to be built over borders between people. In order to move people to act together faster and more effectively when or we are all moving faster towards a particular business outcome. It puts more stress on us as individuals to adapt and change, which only which only exacerbates the risk of bad interactions between people and groups, more so and at an individual teams and cultural interactions level. Okay, that's all the topic about the dimensions of intercultural interactions and conflict. If there any mistake, I'm very sorry about this. Thank you very much.